Hi, my name's Nicola. This is my little craft room. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a standing stitch. I think this is a great way to start joining a new yarn onto a project, whether you're changing the ball, adding a new colour, or if you're picking up stitches into the side of the work that you've already been doing. I think this is a really neat way of creating that first stitch. Now, I'm using a granny square here. I know that in a granny square you wouldn't normally go into the individual stitches, but in this video I will be, just to show you the principles of creating that standing stitch so that you can apply this if you're doing a normal piece with rows rather than going into those chain spaces. In this sample here, I've got what I would say a standing treble in UK terminology, or a standing double in US terminology. So you can see that stitch has just started. There's no join, there's no chain. It is just a standing stitch, hence the name. So I'm going to be showing you how to do this, but I'm also going to show you how to do a standing double crochet in UK or a standing single crochet in US. So I'll be showing you how to do both of those in this video today. I'm using a random granny square and I'm going to create my standing stitch with this green yarn. So many crocheters are going to be familiar with what I think is probably the standard way that people teach you for how to join on a new yarn, which is where in the stitch that you want to join your yarn on, let's say I pick this one, you're going to create a slip stitch to attach the yarn to the piece. Then you'd chain up to the height of your stitch, and then you'd go back into the original stitch to create whatever stitch you're starting, whether it be a double crochet, treble, or if you're in US, a single or a double. Now, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with this. It works, and it's how many people do join their yarn on. Personally, I find this quite messy. I don't like the kind of bulk you get right on the join, and you end up with just a lot of yarn going on there with the slip stitch in the chains. So personally, this is why I prefer the standing stitch. So the first one I'm going to show you is a standing double crochet in UK terminology, or a single crochet in US terminology. So I'm essentially, it's kind of what it says on the tin. I'm basically just going to create a stitch, a standalone stitch, where I'm going to start my new row. So I'm going to pick that same stitch again, starting as usual with the slip knot on my hook. I'm essentially just going to act like this yarn is already attached. And I'm just going to do my stitch as though I was already attached and I was well in the flow of my row. Now, to make sure it doesn't twist around, you might want to put this finger just on the slip knot, just to stop it twizzling around on your hook. So I'm going to put my hook through the stitch, bring my yarn through so that I've got my 2 loops on the hook, and then just finish off my double crochet. And I get a double crochet stitch that has just appeared. It's a standalone double crochet, hence the term standing double crochet, or a standing stitch. So I'll do that again. So I start off with my slip knot. Let's pick another stitch. Let's say I'm going to do it into this stitch here. So I'm going to go into my stitch as I normally would. Like I said, you might want to put your finger on that yarn on the slip stitch, on the slip knot, sorry, just to stop it from twizzling around. I'm going to bring my yarn under like I would when I'm making a normal double crochet, 2 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through both. And that is my standing stitch. And I would just carry on. If I were continuing the granny square and working in the round, I'd carry on, and then I would just slip stitch to that first one as a normal join. So that is the standing double crochet, or single crochet if we're using US terminology. If you wanted to try a UK treble or a US double, very, very similar. You just have to be a little bit more careful when you're wrapping the yarn, because obviously that starts with a wrap before you actually put your yarn, before you put your hook into the stitch. So that one I really would recommend just popping your finger on that slip knot, just to make sure it doesn't twizzle around, because you will be wrapping, and if you don't have your finger, that yarn will just unwrap itself. So yeah, I would highly recommend just wrapping it with that finger. So you're going to yarn over like you would, and then the rest is essentially the same principle. You're going to go into the stitch where you're making your treble or your double, yarn over, pull through. You've got 3 loops. I would still be keeping a tight finger on that first slip knot just to make sure, or all of them sometimes. And then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is my standing treble crochet in UK terms, or a standing double crochet in US terms. I'll pull that out and show you again. So start with your usual slip knot, finger on that slip knot, wrap the hook as usual into your stitch, yarn over and pull under your stitch. So you've got 3 loops, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and you have your standing treble crochet or standing double crochet. And this essentially works for any stitch, no matter how many wraps you're adding, whether you're doing a half treble or half double. It would essentially be the same principle. You're just creating a stitch without joining on and then chaining. And I like the effect this gives, because you essentially would create a row without that kind of extra leg, which I know when you're doing a granny square, you would have to chain up anyway if you were continuing on in the same color for more than one row. But if you're changing every row, it creates a really nice, neat effect where you can't actually tell where the rows start and finish. So I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, my main recommendation, particularly if you're doing any taller stitches that involve wrapping the hook before you place it into the stitch, finger on that slip knot to stop it unraveling. And there we go. I hope you found that useful. Happy hooking!